Welcome to today's Research Business Daily Report, where serious market researchers come for news, insights, and commentary about the research field that they work in, and we provide them with knowledge and other important information that impacts them both personally and professionally, including inside and outside their current place of work. On RBDR today, Lightspeed Research's patent has been issued for what it calls its honesty detector. It's a tool that can spot online respondents who are not being truthful. RBDR sponsored today and this week by the industry expert Socratic Technologies. Chairman Bill McElroy has devoted portions of his very valuable time and is sharing invaluable insights that have been collected and developed by Socratic about respondent engagement. They are being presented right now in think pieces that are being published by the Market Research Institute International, better known as MRII. The three most recent papers discuss engagement gamification, engagement through environment interactive gamification, and the necessary cash incentive needed to not only attract survey participation, but survey engagement as well. You won't find this kind of knowledge anywhere else, and certainly not for the price being offered by Socratic. What could be better for any of you out there than free scholarly research conducted about one of the true survey research issues of these times? It's nothing new for Socratic Technologies, which has offered 1-hour hands-on research on research presentations about cutting-edge issues like mobile surveys, co-creation, communication of results, and brand strategies in recent years. And these have been made available by Socratic for free to corporate research groups of 5 or more. And now some of this information is being made available to you, our viewers on RBDR. Look for the article link for one of Bill's latest engagement white papers. It's in the description box directly underneath today's video. Do yourself and soak it all in. What could you lose? After all, it is free. And contact sotech.com to gain either further benefits from this outstanding research organization. The world is enthralled by the new movie about Wonder Woman, and one of her superpowers includes a lasso of truth. Neat idea, but is it commercially viable? Well, I certainly had my doubts when I saw a news item last week, but it would be natural to scoff at the idea until you see the U.S. Patent Office, which awarded patent number 9,639,816 last week, which is appropriately called Identifying People Likely to Respond Accurately to Survey Questions. Now, we spoke to one of the two patent awardees, Lightspeed's chief scientist, Mitch Eggers. Lightspeed's 2016 efforts with this tool identified and removed 644,000 respondents from panels that they control for failing honesty detection. And we went into great detail with Mitch about what this is all about. What is the foundation? How do you detect if somebody is being honest or not?
Well, we've noticed that a group of people tend to over-report, say yes to many of the early questions in a survey because they are tired of being screened out. They've had multiple trials, and so now they have learned to say yes to many of those screener questions. And so we use that behavior to detect those people.
Okay, and this is actually in the survey itself, or as part of a screening process?
We use it both ways. We sometimes embed it right into the early parts of the survey, but we've also built a service where we have a module, and all of the sample that we procure for our studies go through that module. So both our own panelists as well as those that we purchase from third parties to complete our client surveys, all are exposed.
Can you give us some examples of some of the screening, quote-unquote, questions you use that are honesty detectors?
Yeah, there's two types. There are three, but two are the important ones. There are a series of low-incidence questions, things like, do you have an annual subscription to the opera? Have you operated a chainsaw in the past 12 months? Do you have 3 cats as personal domestic pets? Those are very low IR questions, and they're unrelated to each other. And then there's a second type of question that we use, and it's the calibration question, and that's a very special type of question. It is a question that is known in an honest population to be randomly related to almost everything else, and we also know its percentage in the population. Two examples of calibration questions are you left-handed? Or in a survey we might ask, do you use a left-handed, or have you used a left-handed mouse, left-handed joystick, or left-handed peripheral? The other question we can ask is, are you a Leo? Are you a Taurus? Were you born in the month of November? Your birth month is unrelated to whether you have opera tickets, cats as pets, or operate chainsaws. So but we also know the percentage of the population. For example, roughly 1/12 are born in any given month, or roughly 10 to 15% are left-handed.
And what's the third screening?
The third screening question, we noticed at one point on a website it was posted, here's how to get through the screener questions, say X, Y, and Z. So we actually have a high incidence question, which might be something like, do you have a telephone? Do you have a driver's license? It'd be nice if you said no to that one. Okay. So you could make it a little more complex, but it's not that necessary.
Okay. Now, in receiving the patent, the point was made in the release that you've eliminated almost 650,000 respondents from your panels in whatever the time period is. If I'm one of those people that has been removed, am I aware of that?
No, we don't notify you, and you simply cease being activated for our studies. You might kind of wonder why you stopped getting invitations and write our help desk, at which point we call up your ID, look at your history, and we can tell whether it was because multiple clients complained about your responses, because you might have black marks there, or you have flunked our honesty detector a couple of times.
Would you tell me that if I called in, if I had been removed?
No, we say that your answers have been unsatisfactory, and we have clients who complain about them, or we've detected them to be insufficient in terms of engagement and integrity, and so we have decided not to invite you.
Okay. If I'm one of those people, you obviously have my email address. If I try to come back in through a banner ad or some other invitation other than the most frequent way of inviting me, do I get immediately screened out?
If you use the same email address, yes, we run a check. We keep everyone in our database, and everybody who signs up, we run a check against those previous groups for whom we've decided not to send invites. And so if you switch email addresses, you might get a second chance. If you are using the same email address, you will not.
Okay. Now, one of the things that really got me interested in what you're doing here is the fact that Lightspeed actually is the organization that is responsible for a number of Cantar panels. And so this is not just a Lightspeed innovation.
Correct. We're part of the Cantar group and the broad consumer insights group, and we use our honesty detector for all of those clients within Cantar whom we serve, and all of the non-Cantar external clients to whom we supply respondents. And we use it not just on our own panels, we use it on any third-party or brokered sample we procure to complete those studies. And so it's right across the board.
Okay. So what percentage of the panels that you are responsible for are Cantar owned and operated?
Lightspeed is a high percentage of the Cantar panels. There are a few outside, but we're the majority, vast majority. But of the Lightspeed business in total, half of our business is outside Cantar and half of our business is inside Cantar. We treat them all the same, although different groups, so you don't have crossover.
Okay. Is there the potential for this to be offered as an industry service?
Yeah, we have had clients ask us if we will provide like a web service, so they just bounce panelists off, run the test, and come back. And we're considering supplying that. Right now, we run such a high volume of our own panel plus brokered panelists across it. We use it for those studies that we're the hosting and the sample supplier for, and have not just opened it up on a third-party basis. It's under consideration. If there's market demand, we would certainly consider doing it.
Okay. What's the add-on cost to you guys, which gets passed on to your clients for use of the honesty detector, which I'm assuming is always on?
It is always on. The added cost to us is we throw out sometimes 3 to 5%, depending on the country. We'll throw out much more in some other countries, and so that cost is there. But in fact, we save money because we don't have post-data collection, a client coming back and saying, the data's not right, I don't understand this, why do I have these answer patterns? You certainly save the incentive on a group of panelists that you might be likely to remove from the study post-field. And so, in fact, it saves us and our clients money. So we can actually operate at the same price points and just include Honesty Detector as a quality measure to try and keep down the post-data collection costs.
So there's no obvious additional cost to me if
No.
you use. Okay. What is there any statistical significance? In other words, can you, with any kind of reliability, say that we can get rid of 98% of dishonest survey takers?
Yeah, it's hard to determine the percentage of all dishonest survey takers we can get rid of, but we get rid of a very high percentage of a very specific type of survey taker. And the specific type that we're targeting with this honesty detection technique is the over-reporters who tend to be high frequency. They've been conditioned. They understand they need to say yes to get to the survey. That's the group that we're really cleaning out. Those who are just disengaged and not paying close attention and don't even spend enough mental energy to figure out how to lie and game the system, those are not going to necessarily be caught by the honesty detector because it looks for those high frequency yeses and those claiming purchase intent or ownership that really isn't there.
Okay. Who are from a national standpoint around the world the worst, and which countries are the best as far as honesty detection goes?
Yeah, well, let's start with the best. It's always good to start on a positive note. The most honest group of consumers that come out time and time again when we run against multiple suppliers, multiple approaches, different questions in the honesty detector. Japan, the most honest country that we survey all the time. Slightly above Japan, add a couple percentage points to those who we throw out. You find Canada's next, and then comes the U.S., UK, Australia. So that's a pretty good group, but Japan's definitely the leader there. The two most unreliable countries that we survey are China and India. Very high percentages of people removed. They have a very different cultural history than the rest of us, and they come to an online survey apparently with a very different kind of agreement on what's the deal and how.
It surprises me only that those two areas have been taking surveys far less frequently than a lot of the other industrialized nations, where it's become more commonplace to have professional researchers.
Yeah, so we looked into it because you're in dangerous territory when you're pointing out that this particular country has a higher percentage of dishonest respondents than not. So we looked at both the economic aspects and the cultural aspects. On the cultural aspects, we found two data sets that would shed some light on this potentially. One is the World Bank's corruption index. In which of these countries is it difficult to do business? Should one be careful? If you're paying special tips and extra money to get certain things accomplished, you may be in violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. So you have to be very careful in these countries. The World Bank puts that index out. It turns out that the percentage of people who we're detecting as dishonest correlates with that corruption index, so indicating it's cultural. The second piece, economic, it is possible that we're inducing some people to be more dishonest than they otherwise would be because maybe our purchasing power parity of our incentive is quite high in Mexico and India, and so the benefit to lying is actually higher. So it's probably a combination of these two factors.
Okay. And my next to last question is, it sounds like this could be used for ferreting out dishonesty in just about any recruiting situation. Is that true? In other words, focus groups or other things not related to sample?
Yes, absolutely. Anytime the potential participant has a direct incentive to try and qualify for a focus group as a IT professional or as a B2B member of a research group, if they have figured out that they need to say yes to certain questions, this technique and honesty detector will identify them as unlikely to be giving honest responses.
Well, I would think this would be something that would be very interesting to a company like LinkedIn, just for that reason. If you look at the 644,000 that have been eliminated, what percentage is that out of all of the panelists that you guys are responsible for that you have removed, from panels?
Oh, that's a good question. It's probably runs in the 10 to 12% range, because that group is both our panels and everything we procure. So it's anybody we've tested across 30 countries. We have the nice thing about honesty detection, our techniques, is it translates nicely. You can ask those questions across all countries. I don't need a special database in Mexico, Japan, or China to make it work. And so across 30 countries, probably about 10%.
Okay, last question. Honesty Detector is something that it seems to me you would be constantly evolving and finding ways to improve. Is that true?
Yes, we have a version 2 that will be even better than what we have today, and we continually build our library of questions, and so we select from 50 and 60 questions, so it continually looks like screening questions and continually has different low incidence and calibration questions that are being presented.
That's your Research Business Daily Report, sponsored by the industry expertise of Socratic Technologies, whose engagement white papers are available at no charge to RBDR viewers. Simply click on the link that we've created and soak in the potential eye-opening information. Have a great research day, and we'll see you back here with us tomorrow.